Warren Buffett said something that changed how I think about every decision I make. Risk comes from not knowing what you're doing. That's it. That's the whole game. And once you actually understand what he means, you realize that most of the things you've been avoiding your entire life aren't risky at all. They're just unfamiliar. Here's the thing everyone gets wrong about risk. They think risk is about the opportunity. This stock is risky. Starting a business is risky. Crypto is risky. Real estate is risky. No. The opportunity is just the opportunity. It sits there. It does not care about you. The risk is you. The risk is what you do not know about the thing you are putting your money, your time, or your career into. Think about it. The entrepreneur who launches a startup without understanding their market, they fail. The investor who buys stocks based on a hot tip from their cousin, they lose money. The person who changes careers without doing a single hour of research, they struggle. But none of those things were inherently risky. They became risky because of ignorance, and ignorance is a choice. I know this because I lived it. In 2018, I was 17, and I thought I was a genius. I had turned $200 into a small fortune on a crypto called Neo, up over 4,000%. And my brain did what every young brain does. It confused luck with skill. So I went full degen. Crash gambling, made over 7,000, lost it all plus 2,000 more. Then I found BitMEX. 100x leverage. I set a trade, went to sleep, and woke up liquidated. Gone. All of it. Because I did not understand how a stop limit worked. Here's the thing. Crypto was not the risk. Leverage was not the risk. I was the risk. I had no idea what I was doing, and I paid the exact price Buffett described. Now here is where it gets interesting. Because the choices that feel safest, those often carry the greatest long-term risk. Your friend who keeps $100,000 in a savings account because the stock market is too scary? Inflation is eating roughly 3 to 5% of that purchasing power every single year. Over 30 years, that safe 100,000 buys about half of what it does today. They did not lose money, right? They lost purchasing power. Silently. Every day. The employee who stays in a declining industry because it feels secure faces the risk of waking up obsolete. The person who never starts a business because it feels too dangerous carries the risk of regret and a ceiling they chose for themselves. Safe is not the absence of risk. Safe is just risk you cannot see. And the risk you cannot see is the one that gets you. Let me show you how Buffett actually uses this. Late 1988, the market had just crashed. October 1987, Black Monday. Everyone was terrified. And Buffett starts buying Coca-Cola, over $1 billion of it. People thought he was insane. The stock market just collapsed. Consumer tastes are supposedly shifting. Soda is going to die. But Buffett understood something the market didn't. He understood the brand power. He understood that Coca-Cola sells in almost every country on Earth. He understood the distribution network, the economics, the moat that no competitor could touch. What looked risky to the market was actually one of the safest bets available to someone who had done the work. He still owns it. Decades later, one of his best investments ever. The opportunity was the same for everyone. The risk was different because his knowledge was different. So how do you actually do this? How do you tell the difference between a smart risk and a stupid one? Buffett has another concept for that, the Circle of Competence. Picture a circle. Everything inside it is what you genuinely understand. Not what you have heard of, not what your friend told you about, what you have actually studied, worked with, and know. The most successful investors, entrepreneurs, and professionals are not the ones who never take risks. They're the ones who know where their circle ends. When you operate inside your circle, you can move with confidence. You understand the variables. You see what others miss. When you operate outside it without realizing, that is where you blow up. I blew up in 2018 because I was miles outside my circle and did not even know the circle existed. The move is not to never leave the circle. The move is to expand it deliberately, one topic at a time, until what used to be terrifying is just another thing you understand. Okay, practically, when you are facing a decision that feels risky, whether that is an investment, a career change, starting a business, buying a property, anything, there are 4 questions that collapse the uncertainty. 1. The numbers. What are the financials? What does it cost? What does it return? Where does the cash flow? You would be shocked how many people skip this entirely. 2. The landscape. Who are the other players? What are the trends? What are the barriers to entry? Is this a growing market or a shrinking one? 3. The operations. How does this thing actually work day to day? What are the processes, the systems, the skills required? 4. The people. Who are you working with? What is their track record? What are their incentives? In finance, they call this due diligence. I call it the difference between a bet and a decision. Bets hope. Decisions know. And when you know, the risk collapses. Now I need to give you the counterweight, because there is a trap on the other side. It is called analysis paralysis. You can research forever. You can read every article, run every model, interview every expert, and you still never act. Here's the practical truth. You can usually get 80% of the critical information with 20% of the effort. The other 20% of information takes 80% of the effort and almost never changes the decision. You need to know the market size, the competition, the financials, your downside, and what success looks like. You do not need a perfect prediction of the future. Nobody has that. Not Buffett, not anyone. The goal is not certainty. The goal is sufficient understanding to move with confidence. Learn enough to know the risks, then act. Because the biggest risk of all is knowing exactly what to do and never doing it. Let me close the loop on my own story. After the losses, after the liquidation, after watching my money evaporate because I was playing a game I did not understand, I did something boring. I started learning. I read about options Greeks before I traded options. I studied company financials before I bought a single share. I learned what a balance sheet actually tells you. What a moat looks like. What risk-reward means when you do the math instead of guessing. Same markets. Same person. Completely different results. My portfolio went from around 350,000 to over 500,000 in about 3 weeks in late 2024. Then crossed 1 million Canadian by 2025. And people look at that and say, that is so risky. Tesla leaps? MicroStrategy? No. It was calculated. I understood the thesis, the downside, the catalysts, the position sizing. The risk was not the trade. The risk was removed because I finally did the work. Not advice. That is my story. Your trades are your trades. But the principle is universal. Knowledge is the hedge that never expires. Here's the part that should make you angry and hopeful at the same time. The knowledge advantage is free. It is literally free. Every earnings report is public. Every company filing is online. Every book that changed how billionaires think cost $12. Every podcast, every lecture, every framework is sitting there waiting for you to pick it up. The moat is not access to information. The moat is the willingness to actually consume it, understand it, and apply it. Most people would rather scroll for 4 hours than read for 1. And that gap, that tiny gap between the person who studies and the person who guesses, compounds over decades into an unrecoverable distance. Knowledge compounds. Just like money, the more you know, the more you can learn. The more you learn, the more opportunities become visible. The more opportunities you see, the less risk you carry. It is a flywheel, and it is available to anyone willing to do the work. So the next time something scares you, a stock, a business, a career move, a market, ask yourself one question. Am I scared because this is actually dangerous? Or am I scared because I do not understand it yet? If it is ignorance, that is fixable. Go learn. Expand the circle. Do the diligence. And then make the move that the version of you 6 months from now will be grateful for. Risk comes from not knowing what you're doing. So know what you're doing. I am building a community of people who think this way, patient, informed, hunting asymmetric bets, small risk, big upside. Follow Wealthy Beaver on X, handles on screen, start learning. I want to see you win.